In the Moyes courtroom scene, you now have a more detailed argument from Kevin Lomax. He obviously did a lot of research. He has a very specific defense that is tied to religious freedom, to all of the modern acceptances of brutality and killing that are involved in civilized society, and whether it's slaughtering animals to eat or involving animals in religious ceremonies, snake handling, and in some charismatic religions, etc. And it's quite an interesting, thought-out process that is based on real cases that were involved in similar subjects. So in this instance, I like what Kevin did. It shows that he is very smart and wily and knows how to survive in a courtroom. But inevitably, we trimmed this scene down for time, nothing more. I also thought that Alan Manson, the judge in this scene, was wonderful. Jewish, obviously from New York, and that's not lost on Kevin Lomax. He starts talking about Kashuit law, which I thought was a very nice touch. Another thing is that in this instance, Daniel Oreska, who plays the DA, had to cough through this entire sequence. I mean, he has, hardly anything to say and has to realistically, this is some instances where you say to an actor, what do you do in the scene? Well, this is a scene in which you have coughing fits. And at the same time, he has to bring it off. At the end of the sequence, the entire audience and the crew gave him a standing ovation. I think the other thing you want to see here is those frescoes on the wall. This is a real courtroom in New York City. As I'd said on the main track, we shot in all real courtrooms, both state, federal, Supreme Court courtrooms we shot in. And these are all in Foley Square, except for the opening sequence, which was in, the scene set in Florida, which we shot in New Jersey, in a very, very wonderful courtroom in New Jersey. These were all authentic courtrooms in Foley Square in Lower Manhattan. What I've done is string these scenes together, even when there were not changes, so you have an idea of continuity. You've seen the Moyes basement scene, you see the Moyes courtroom, and we are about to enter a scene that was severely cut for the film, which is in Chinatown. This little bridge outside where Milton comes to visit him is exactly the same. Now, we are in Chinatown. We are on Canal Street. We did a lot of spontaneous shooting. When you take a Steadicam out in this area, you cannot control it. It's very difficult to shoot in Manhattan anyway without people looking. And we had a few extras that walked around, but as a whole, you're just out there with real people. And you see, I love this street. This is Manhattan. Look at those trucks. Canal Street is like, people thundering through, but you also have teeming life on the sidewalk. Al Pacino is an animal of New York. I mean, he is a guy that came from the streets of New York. And I'm most interested in him when he is relating to that. Certainly, Dog Day Afternoon, it speaks eloquently about, his life there. So did Panic in Needle Park, which was his first film. You saw him coursing through the streets in this incredible energy. It's part of his lifeblood. I wanted to see John Milton out in his milieu, as I said before on the main track. He is a New Yorker. He's a self-made man. He comes from these streets. He may be brilliant. He may be incredibly powerful, but he never forgot his roots. And to take Pacino out, also, the wonderful thing in this is very few cuts. You're walking in a Steadicam. You have a two-shot. You're trying to get a sense of continuity and energy that comes with New York. When they stop occasionally, then I cut in for coverage here, as you can see, and we get in, we're trying to make a point. This was in the original film, and you saw that. Now, there's a wonderful bit as he's walking up when he's talking about lawyers, corporate lawyers, doing needlepoint, committing battles, by push button, international battles by push button. It's Milton philosophizing about the law, and this sequence was about this. He's talking about why he's different, and that was in the film. But coming up, You're about to see him, again, philosophize about the law. I'm really sorry that this wasn't in the film. Again, for time, we had to cut it down. But you'll see that Tony Gilroy was particularly interested at this point in establishing this relationship of lawyers. And Milton is a fatherly figure here. He has taken the time to come down and see Kevin with his first case, which he's won brilliantly, but it's a minor case. It doesn't matter how big or minor it is. It's that the defense was brilliant. Now he's teaching him something that seems moral. He's teaching him about the law. Philosophically, we've got the scene where he speaks Chinese, which is in the real film. Now, in this sequence right now, this is where Milton is going to basically seduce Kevin. He seems to be talking about morals, but if you notice, he's making a differentiation between moral right, which is God's purview, and the lawyer's professional responsibility. Better that 100 men go free than one man be executed wrongfully. Now that's the classic line you always hear from lawyers. But think about it. It is, I think, philosophically very interesting. But then again, better than 100 men go free that are guilty. And, these are the basic elements of the law that I think can be manipulated in this instance by the devil. Now he's coming to Kevin in a very sincere way. I think Pacino is brilliant here and being able to communicate things in a personal way that have to do seemingly with morals. But what he's basically saying is, leave the moral judgments to God. We have a job to do, and it's a sacred oath that we swear to. At the end, I love where he says token, and basically teaches him another lesson about taking the subway, stay in the trenches, know the people. But I love the word token. In other words, he's gone through this whole thing. There's a cynicism that always runs through Milton.